The world depends on agriculture, but farming isn't just hard work. It's innovation, strategy, business. This is the Wylie AgCast, where we dive into everything that drives modern agriculture. From the latest advancements in ag tech to the business strategy shaping the industry, we cover tools, trends, and challenges that matter to you. Sit back, relax, and tune in.
Welcome to another episode of the Wylie AgCast. I'm here with farmer Mr. Brad Heffington. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. I appreciate you taking the time to come down here and talk to me today. We're trying to get some customers in here and get a little more insight on farming from actual farmers.
Well, that's good because a lot of times there's the message doesn't come from the farmers a lot of times, and misconceptions of our occupation is pretty rampant out there.
Right, so. Exactly. So starting out, tell me a little bit about where you're from. And
I'm from Littlefield, Texas. Was born there. Well, I went to school at Littlefield. We lived outside of Littlefield in a little town called Filton.
Okay.
Interesting tidbit about that Filton got its name because it's halfway between Littlefield and Olton. So they put those two together, and that's how came up with that. But it's not a very big town anymore.
Yeah.
And it wasn't very big even when I was growing up. But and my wife is from Spade, but we both went to school in Littlefield, and that's where we met. And interesting, we knew each other all our lives, but we'd never dated or anything. And then she had a boyfriend that was older. I'd had a girlfriend for a couple of years, and we'd broken up, and that she was a year older than me also. Kim and I were seniors, and then he called and wanted me to ask me to take her to prom so she wouldn't miss prom. And yeah, that kind of didn't work out so good for him, but I mean, it was it just one of those deals that that had probably ran its course anyway. And then, but then we ended up, and we've been married 37 years now. So we got three boys, and lived there at Littlefield our whole married life. And we went to South Plains College 2 years, and then graduated from Texas Tech. And I got the opportunity to. My family's always been in the cotton ginning business, but I worked for farmers during the summer growing up, and always just had a passion to want to do that. I just kind of loved the challenges it had, and there's plenty of challenges at times.
I'm sure, yeah.
But my dad, we didn't have anybody that could really help you get going, but I was real fortunate that we lived in a small town, had a small town banker that his name was James Lee. He owned First National Bank in Littlefield. Well, my dad had a friend that is back in 1989 is really dry. And about April 21st, he just decided he wasn't going to do it anymore. And he chunked it in, and he told my dad, he said, well, if he'll buy me out what I've done so far, I'll let him rent this stuff.
Okay.
And so Dad told me, he said, well, son, I don't know what you can do, but I got some stuff you might can rent. And so I went and talked to a couple bankers there in town, and I didn't have anything, but Kim and I were juniors at Tech and had a student loan debt, didn't have a negative net worth actually, and I'd bought a pickup and financed it at one of the banks in town, and kind of went there and talked to them, and they kind of laughed. But then went to another one. They were helpful, but they said we'd have to get you a guaranteed loan through FHA and all that. It would take a couple months, and I'm like, I don't have a couple months. I got to tell this guy in a couple days. And so I went over to see Mr. Lee at First National Bank, and an interesting story. He was on the state football team that Littlefield had back in '49, and he just loved Wildcat football. And me and my brothers were pretty decent at it. My brother's probably a lot better than I was, but they still hold some records at running back. I was slower. I was a lineman, but if I could catch them, I'd beat them up.
Right, exactly.
But they were fast. I mean, Brent and Brian both ran 4.40s, and if I could run a 5 flat. But anyway, he just loved high school football, and he told me one time, if you ever need anything, come see me. And so, and Mr. Lee just looked just like that banker in the Banker Tougher and All little cartoons. He's kind of short, pot-bellied, shaved his head guy, chewed on a cigar. And I mean, he was pretty intimidating. I mean, if you didn't know him. And so I went there and kind of told him about the opportunity I had, and kind of proposed a budget and a loan I thought I needed. And he sat there a minute, and he said, I think we can do that. And I was like, wow, okay. And
There
I
you
didn't know what
go.
to say, and I still remember he told me, he said, well, this is the way it works, Brad. He said, I'll loan you the money, and you pay it back, plus a little. And he said, as long as you do that, everything will be fine. And then after a couple of years, we got to be pretty good. I mean, we were partners, the bank was helping us, but I was paying every bit of interest owed him, but anyway, it became a good relationship, and he actually helped me rent some more land.
Okay.
About 2 years I was into farming, and then we just kind of grown since then, but I'll be indebted to him and his family. They later sold out to the AIM Bank Group, and now it's First Bank and Trust, but they're all the Lees are not involved in it anymore, but you can't do that nowadays. You got to have somebody in the business to get you going. And so we're first generation farmers, Kim and I. And then now I've got 3 sons, and the oldest one is farming and doing really well. And then my middle son's he's an administrator at Friendship ISD, and he's a instructional coach. It works with curriculum and stuff like that. And then his wife's an RN, and she works in the stroke center at Covenant, so they like doing that. Then my youngest son's going to tech, and he just started farming last year.
Okay.
But he wants to farm, so we're kind of getting him in it. So
what's he studying at Tech?
He's agribusiness. They've got a new program there. He started off in Rawls College. That's what I got. I got a business degree when we went to Tech, but they had some ag eco degrees, but they weren't really tailored to bigger business like farming is nowadays. Yeah. So this curriculum at Turner, Dr. Hudson actually we talked, and then he had somebody recruit him over there from the Rawls, and that was really good because they've got some really, really good program in the agribusiness deal now, and so he likes about a year getting out. Okay. And so he's doing good. And
is he going to take the reins from you?
Well, I don't know. I think they're trying to take them now, but I haven't turned them over. But Tanner farms a lot on his own, and always has. We've never. I mean, we might help each other do some stuff. Right. And then Tanner started out kind of worked for me till he had enough to where he could make a living on his own, and he's married and to a local girl there, and she's she started there and then moved to Arizona a while, then moved back when she was in high school, and they kind of met afterwards. But they've got 3 little girls. My middle son Tyler's got 1 little girl. She's about a year and a half. So all I had was brothers and boys. So this girl stuff's new to me. But we enjoy it. My wife's pretty happy that the girls outnumber the boys now, and that's never been the way in the Heffington family. So I mean, and first time Tanner had a gender reveal, they put powder and exhaust pipe on a tractor and cranked it up to see what it was. And
that's a good way to do it.
We didn't do stuff like that when Kim and I were young, but that's kind of a thing nowadays, I guess. But everybody, I think his wife had us wear a blue or pink shirt, and everybody had a blue shirt on. They cranked that tractor up, and it blew pink smoke everywhere, and nobody could believe it. And then now there's 4 of them. So so I told Turner, you're going to have a boy in there somewhere. Our name's going to die if we don't. But, which if it does, it does. But so we're real family oriented. We've started with 2 or 3 places, and we farm quite a bit now. Okay. Between Tanner and I, we probably farm about 15,000 acres. So it's farming's a big business nowadays. There's not many small producers, and they're retiring because the equipment costs, and I mean, cotton strippers $1 million. You can't make a living on half section, So it's big business now. Yeah, and you have to tend to it that way.
You almost have to be big nowadays just to stay afloat.
And we're not that big. There's a lot of 20 and 30,000 acre growers now. So I mean, we're good size, but there's even bigger ones out there, and it'll continue to get bigger because it's not Mayberry anymore, and it's. It's just like Walmart's here, and the gas station on the corner is not coming back. It's just the way it is. So, but you got to adapt and learn to do that. But we've been blessed a lot over the years. There's been several years it's a little tough, but they all average out.
We got to keep the faith, especially.
Yeah, you do, and you learn to kind of get through that. And the hardest part's geopolitical stuff. And just like right now, I mean, our country's got to get some stuff straight, but, these tariffs deals are really affecting prices right now.
Oh, don't I know it.
Secretary Rawlins was here last week, and we had some meetings with her, and, she assures us President Trump's going to get a win for the farmers. And when the first term, he really did. When he went out of office, cotton was $1.23 and corn was $7 from the trade deals he'd made. I mean, he even got China to buy rice. I mean, so hopefully he can get that back on track. But I'm not trying to get political, but President Biden just didn't enforce those trade agreements, so that's why our cotton industry's in the way it is right now.
What would you say the cotton industry looks like just as a whole?
It's pretty bleak right now. I mean, our acres keep going down and our production's going down. We've lost our majority of our spending in the U.S. So, the United States consumes 25 to 27 million bales worth of cotton products, and we're only growing 13, 14, and we're only spending $2 million. We're having to send it overseas to be made into something to come back, which doesn't make sense. But that's one thing. President Trump's trying to get some spending back here, but history of cotton, it always goes to developing countries and the lowest cost producers. So it's even moving out of China to some of the other Pacific Rim countries now that are lower cost than them. But we've got some trade difference on deals on duty free stuff from Central America and stuff that we've got some deals working. They just need enforced, and that's the weather. It's just going to be challenging, but you can have. We made a crop last year, and we're having trouble selling it because the prices tanked, and I couldn't get a forward contract that I thought was worth signing at the time because the discounts were so huge and quality. I didn't think it was worth the risk, and so we're trying to muddle through that and get that done. So that's one unique thing about agriculture is always a challenge,
Sure.
And that's kind of makes it exciting, but makes it a little stressful at times too.
Oh, yeah.
But we've been very blessed over the years, and thankful for what we've been blessed with. And we got very lucky last night. Was blessed with a good rain there in local spot in North Littlefield. I'm glad it's raining now, and it's trying to rain because maybe it'll keep spreading out, and we'll have more of a normal year. These last 4 years have been tough on all of agriculture. I mean, in businesses like yours, and sales and gins and warehouses, and I had no shortage of salesmen come around this winter just trying to sell something because it's so slow right now.
Yeah, and
it doesn't matter if you're fertilizer, seed, chemicals, parts, bearings. I mean, everybody, you can tell it's hurting right now.
Yeah.
So hopefully, that's one thing we got an update on. Congress did address some of that stuff because of the huge increase in prices we've had since COVID.
Sure.
That a lot of them have not come down, but our commodity prices have dropped drastically since then.
Yeah.
And, we've got markets there where there's a lot of speculators in it, and they can swing it one direction or the other just from the sheer volume of the trades, and the fundamentals don't get traded a lot nowadays. It comes back to that eventually.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
It's even hard to hedge things right now because the market's so volatile. And,
unfortunately.
There's some issues like that are pressing, but Secretary Rawlins had a really good speech when she was out here last week with Congressman Arrington, and she assured us that President Trump's got rural America's back, especially the farmers that make it go. And he said this trade war might hurt a little bit, but they're going to do some things to hopefully get us through that. And,
well, that's reassuring for sure.
And then Congress passed a couple supplemental disaster bills at the end of the last session right before Christmas that the new secretary is trying to get implemented. They've got a little bit of it implemented, but I haven't had this many calls from other producers and even lenders I'm friends with, and some that just, I've been a former past president of Plains Cotton Growers and involved in stuff for a long time. I was on Congressman Combest Advisory Committee and Congressman Nagelbyer's, and I'm on Congressman Arrington's committee, and worked really well with Jody. Boy, Jody really fights for the farmers out here.
Yeah.
Even
what are some things he's doing now that?
Well, right now he's really working on the trade deal, and he had former Congressman Conaway down here last summer, and we had a meeting. And I told him, I said, they're working on the new farm bill. Jody's been really involved in that. The unique thing about him right now, he's budget chairman of the House, and so he can help with things like that. But he's also got the task of cutting the budget so much right now because of the frivolous spending that's in it.
Exactly,
He's
yeah.
under a lot of pressure for that way. But him and Speaker Johnson were able to go to the Senate and get some funding for these disaster programs that the Senate stripped out before Christmas. There's been some criticism for Congressman Arrington saying he wasn't sponsoring this bill or that bill. But when you're a budget chairman, you don't sponsor bills. I mean,
Right.
You work in the background, try to help them get passed. And his support never wavered on that. And like I say, the Senate pulled all that funding out, and then Jody and Congressman Johnson, who's Speaker, he's from Louisiana, farm
Sure.
delegation, so they went to the Senate and negotiated with them, and then they ended up with the biggest disaster package I've ever seen in my career. I mean, they ended up with a $31 million,
Oh, wow.
billion dollar package to help. But the need is great. They're working on that, but it's one thing I told Jody. I said, we need a farm bill for when things aren't good.
Yeah.
That's what they're basically for. I said, the main thing we need is to sell our products for a price and get trade going. And so Secretary Collins said she had 6 different countries she's going to over the next 2 weeks to try to promote ag
wow.
trade. And that's number one. Jody's been meeting with the U.S. Trade Representative and telling them anytime you promote cotton or milk or beef or anything from West Texas,
Yeah.
be sure he's all over that. He does a lot of work behind the scenes that doesn't get press, and there's some up there really trying to help, and I think
yeah.
Jody's one of them. But President Trump is really pressuring him to cut some of these programs, and the House passed a really streamlined bill that would help, but the Senate's not
Yeah.
going along with that. So it'll be this reconciliation process will be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah.
And carries through, and he's working really hard, and I can tell talking to him he's under a lot of pressure. So
Well, it's,
he's been a champion for us. His dad was a case
oh, really?
tractor salesman.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
He worked in Plainview there.
Wow.
Growing
okay.
up, and his mom was a school teacher. So Jody said, we're normal working people, and I know
Yeah.
what it's like. He said, when it wasn't a good year on the farm, we didn't have Christmas. And
Well, yeah, exactly.
so he's told that story to me before, and so yeah, his dad worked up there for years selling red tractors.
Well, that's interesting to find out, because it's nice to know that some of these guys that are up in the ranks are real people with real stories.
And Speaker Johnson the same way. So, and I think that's why they have such a passion for rural America, because rural America's been left behind.
It has.
Some of this stuff, and President Trump knows that's who helped him win this election. But he, he'll tell you himself, he just loves farmers and the people in the rural communities. He said they're workers and they're honest, and we produce something.
Yeah.
We're just not consuming it like so many service industries.
For sure.
And,
Yeah.
that's why he's trying to get manufacturing back, whether it's cars, autos, steel, computer chips, you name it. We've farmed all that out, and he says we need to get that back here, and it's really a matter of national security when you can't produce enough food and you're having to import it from somewhere. That's a scary place to be.
Exactly. Well, even thinking, what happens if they cut us off and then we're SOL.
Yeah. Well, it's like I tell people right now, I said, if we got cut off from cotton imports, we couldn't even get underwear right now. I mean, that's
exactly.
how, and people don't think about that, but cotton's in our sheets and our towels. I mean, when you wake up, you're usually laying on cotton. When you get up and take a shower, you're using cotton.
Exactly.
You're getting dressed, and basic garments are usually cotton, in men at least. And then, if we could figure out how to make yoga pants out of cotton, that would help a lot right now, because that's one thing that's
right.
But that's a big thing right now: microfiber plastics and
well, see, and I've
contamination.
heard
I mean, Cotton Incorporated is fixing to start focusing on some of that to help make awareness of that.
I've heard polyester is going on the rise, along with, like you said, the
It's cheaper
microfibers
to
and plastic.
produce.
Oh, really?
It's easier to spin, and so the polyesters, that's our biggest competitor.
Gotcha.
And that's just like some of the previous attempts by the last administration to limit oil. I mean, oils and everything. Every piece of plastic on this table's got some petroleum product in it.
Exactly.
So that's why Congressman Arrington likes to talk about fuel and fiber capital of the world. I mean, West Texas is that.
Oh, it is.
The world's largest cotton patch, and that's what I told Secretary Rollins when we didn't get. I didn't get to talk to her except at the dinner, but for a minute. But she had a good story about wanting to fight for rural America. So there's, at least, when President Trump talked about farmers and State of the Union address he did
Yeah,
in
he
February, and that hadn't happened in quite a while. So
I know it.
he got things rolling for us.
Yeah.
You know, and then COVID hit, and then the drought in our area. But you know, hopefully, long-term weather patterns show us we've been through a pretty long stretch of dry. It should kind of flip back to more wet.
When do you think that's going to happen?
You know, I think over the next year or two it'll
Okay.
flip back to where
Yeah.
you know, we got to change a couple things in the jet stream, and I've got a consultant that it's kind of a funny story. His name is Brian Bledsoe, and he does a lot of ag forecasting.
Gotcha.
He used to be a weather man on the news in Colorado Springs.
Okay.
But he grew up on a farm in Lamar, Colorado, on the southeast
Yeah.
side, and his family still got a ranch and all that. So he's got a real passion for trying to at least give people accurate information.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
He's studied years and years of climatology, and the biggest thing right now, we got the Pacific Ocean needs to warm up a little bit to make things kind of come through our area a little better.
Okay.
And his data is pretty remarkable. If you go back when I started my career, you can nearly predict what the water temperature in the Pacific was by the crop and the rain we had.
Wow.
I mean, when it's cool, we get cut off. When it's warm, we get more.
Interesting.
And that's, you know, and there's some other things that go into El Nino and La Nina, but that's one of the big deals. But right now we're kind of in a neutral phase.
Yeah. Well, wasn't it last year? What was it? Was it El Nino? La Nina. Okay, gotcha.
It was fixing to flip to El Nino, and then it didn't. But
Yeah.
you know, nobody can predict this stuff. Just use the science that's there. But he says all indications are weather has a pattern, and we should be transitioning back to a wetter pattern
Okay.
here within the next year or two. Is what he thinks. But
Well, see, I didn't know the Pacific Ocean even mattered in farming.
oh yeah,
Interesting.
when it's the Pacific Oscillator Index and stuff. And there's some big words for it that Brian uses, but. He has a podcast. I mean, I'll plug him a little bit because he's helped me make the business
Go
decisions.
for it.
Helped us stay in business. I mean, he's and you know, he doesn't sugarcoat anything. He just tells you the data, and then you can make a better informed decision on, you know, longer term stuff. And you know, he's been cautioning everybody this year to be conservative. I mean, we have better chances of getting some moisture, but still. It's like I told him, I said, if we just got 75% normal, that'd be great compared to what we've been getting the last few years.
Yeah.
And we got some good moisture last fall, so we do have some positive with some underground moisture that's pretty good.
Okay.
If we can get, you know, somewhat normal rain at planting time, hopefully we can get a crop going. And then if President Trump gets some trade stuff going, you know, I hope we're at a low in ag right now. I mean, cattle's doing great, but row crops are not, you know, following suit. So we need that to correct. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of things you can look to, or, you know, it would be like any other business. You can look at all the negatives and depress yourself, or try to look at the positives and try to position your business to take advantage of that. But,
well, that's just good strategy anyway, is, you know, brace for the storm. But
yes, you know, beware. Don't take too many risks, but, you know, we're still in business to produce something and sell it. And that's what we try to do. So.
And I think that's everybody's mission anyway.
Yes,
you know, just
so I'm hopeful that I know there's a lot of, as I started to talk about earlier, distress in the farm. You know, there's a lot of people still trying to get financed, and they're waiting on some of these disaster payments and stuff. Lenders are nervous, but you know, a little of that I don't understand because, well, they don't trust USDA because they've not carried out a couple of the last programs under President Biden the way Congress passed them, and so they're reluctant to use some numbers, you know, for some potential assistance people might have, but from the weather-related disasters. But hopefully USDA comes out with some guidance on that pretty quick, because it's been a long time since I've had this many people call and say, man, I'm having trouble with the bank. They don't want to count this and that. And it's already passed. It's law. It just has to be delivered. But, you know, you can talk to different business people in town, just like Joe Thacker, people like that. Anytime I see somebody like that, like, how's the farm? You know, if we don't have a good farm year, we don't sell stuff, or a car salesman, or, I mean, you know, it's a, you know, people say they, you know, they talk about tech, but they all say, you know, that's not near as big as what ag is to Lubbock. And
ag is huge.
Yeah, and so, you know, they're all hopeful that, you know, we'll start getting some rain, make some crops, and, you know, you know, gens are hurting. There's been some consolidations this year and mergers.
Yeah. Oh, well,
out of necessity. But, everybody has to adapt to the situation. I mean, just like y'all have got quite a few stores now, and stuff. So
well, and
nothing gets smaller.
There's been a lot of gyms that have, like you said, merged, or I've heard a lot of them that are no longer around.
Yeah,
or
just closed.
Yeah, because they just can't keep up.
I just hope that, we've got some technology where gin and capacity and stuff has increased a lot, but my dad passed away just a few years ago. Like I say, his whole life, gin and cotton, he started when he was 13, but he said, we make a crop, we're going to figure out how many gins we don't have anymore,
Exactly.
And he said, but, there's technologies there to help increase that too, so.
Oh, sure, yeah, and everybody's doing everything they can to.
But it'll inevitably, there's just going to be fewer and fewer gins, and it'll just be bigger,
That's true.
And that's sad to see, because like where I grew up, in Filton, there was 3 different gins.
Yeah.
When I was growing up in a little bitty town. There's 100 of us there, 110 something, but a lot of people still lived in the farm.
Well, sure.
Around there, and, I counted one day, I think I farmed what 34 people did when I was growing up. There's just nobody out there anymore. You know, and all the farmers that are left are just bigger, and if they're not very big, they're about the end of their career where they're fixing to retire. And I really don't like farming this much on a lot of days, but it's just, what you have to do to pay for stuff.
Well, sure, yeah, I mean.
And the economics of it require that.
Absolutely. Do you think the land has been easier to get since people have been dropping them out?
No, because everybody that's still here kind of has to do the same thing. They just have to keep growing a little bit at a time. So far, I know there was some talk a few years ago about especially absentee landowners not being able to get people to farm their land, but so far that hasn't been the case. I mean, everybody, if there's 10 people left and one guy quits, they might all take one of his places or something, or their place. Or so that I haven't seen that yet, but the age of a lot of, when I'm 57 and I'm considered one of the younger farmers, that's not a good thing. Yeah. And there's very few producers, like my middle son's 30, my oldest son's 32, and then my youngest one, you can count on the hand that many in our county that are that age. And then I don't even know hardly any more that's Turner's age, he's 22.
Yeah.
So, so we've got a transition coming to where, because a lot of these kids are not coming back. I mean, they're just going off and getting a job somewhere else where it's a little easier. I don't blame them.
Yeah, I mean, it's been so hard to.
That's why I told my youngest son, you got to love this to want to do this.
Exactly.
And if you love it, it'll be okay. But if you're just kind of wanting to do it, you need to do something else.
Well, you
got to be all in. And that, that's pretty much with anything you do. And farming's not any other different than other business. Everybody's having to adapt to different things right now.
Sure.
I mean, y'all got how many stores now, and corporate manager and different things. You don't have a full that specific person at each location now. You're having to use economies of scale just as well.
Exactly.
And so, like I say, Mayberry's not here anymore, and it won't be, unfortunately. But rural life is still a good life if we can. We just need some rain to get prices up, and it'll help things so much. It's unreal. Because when we make a crop, the money rolls through the economy here.
Yeah.
Turns over an average of 7 times, so that's a lot of economic activity.
Yeah. Now you mentioned getting the prices up. What are you doing to try and do that?
We had the World Trade Organization deal that China was supposed to buy so much. I mean, I'll talk cotton specific, but there's a lot of different commodities involved in that. But we're cotton country right now, but they had to buy so many bales of cotton. Well, they hadn't even been fulfilling that. And then when President Trump was in office, he created that Phase 1 trade agreement.
Sure.
Well, they added even more requirements, and that's why the cotton price was hard, because they were buying it. Now they're buying it from other countries. I think just hurt us,
Yeah,
and
it does.
They don't play fair. I mean, they're long-term traders and strategists, and we're not very good at that. They out-trade us all the time, and just like now, they've driven the prices down to nothing. Well, when Trump makes them start buying stuff, they'll buy it on the bottom and build back up. I mean, it's just I've seen it happen several times with them that way. And But we just got to get. But they're trying to. Every country that Secretary Rollins is talking to, she's trying to promote trade for all the different commodities, and our big competitor. I mean, Brazil's really hard to compete with right now, and their cost of production is so much less because they don't have the regulations that we have.
Well, sure, yeah.
But they've also struck up some deals with EU to start letting them sell some crops there and different things. So they're working on the trade deal, and it's interesting. I mean, I'm not, this is causing some pain. I mean,
sure.
For a lot of businesses, but hopefully when we come out the other side, it'll be like before, and then we'll have some better trade deals with people where it's not so one-sided.
Sure.
And some of the tariffs other countries charge us is unreal.
No, isn't
what we do,
Isn't Canada the worst at it?
Oh yeah, well, 300% on milk and dairy.
Yeah, that's insane.
And then they, I think Trump was going to tariff them 25%. And they raised it. Well, what about your 300% tariff?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's why we don't have a lumber industry anymore up there, because of the tariffs, and it's all, so that's why all the lumber production's coming from Canada and stuff. And, sawmills shut down. I mean, we have given so much manufacturing capacity away.
Yeah.
It's unreal the last 20 years.
Well, do you think that's why he's trying to bring it all back in-house?
Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah. You think it'll work?
It did his first term.
Okay.
It got set way back.
Well, yeah.
With Biden in there not enforcing all that, but even last night he said China was kind of coming to the table, and he's going to ease up on some of the tariffs on them. But there's two super economic powers fighting stuff out, and it's just like he said. We don't have to win everything, but it needs to be fair.
Sure.
And right now it's not. It's way one-sided on our trade deficit.
Oh yeah.
So, but we are the biggest consuming country in the world, so they want to do business with us. It's just it'll be interesting to see how he negotiates this out. And but I know there's people, you see it on the news, and I mean, just like the whiskey producers, they're the tariff that Canada said they'd impose, and then they backed off.
Oh yeah.
That would have killed them. But one interesting thing Secretary Rollins said, I think the tariffs involve 134 different countries.
Yeah.
If I remember what she said right. And 70 of them have already called the White House wanting to work out a trade agreement. And no one has had a retaliatory tariff except for China. All these other countries are like, yeah, let's work something out. So hopefully, if you can get a little cotton sold here and a little cotton sold there, all these countries have some spinning capacity. And Canada doesn't buy cotton from us. They get most of it from, the Middle East. So it's, which doesn't make sense logistics-wise. But
I know, it's easier to transport.
Yeah, so, there's, and I know if you're not real informed about all this, and I don't claim to be, but we were just letting the rest of the world stick it to us. I mean, basically.
True.
And so,
yeah.
But there are some people that think we should use up the rest of the world's resources, then we'll still have ours, But, if our country goes broke, gets taken over before then, what good's that do?
Well, and personally, I think that if we delegate everything outside of here, then that continues to hurt us.
We'll just be dependent on things, and they'll have us over.
Exactly. Like I said, as soon as we do that, they're going to take advantage, or
It's just like I tell people right now: if we got cut off from imports, do you use towels when you take a shower every day?
Exactly.
Like, well, what are you going to do if you can't buy a towel? Well, you can't buy a towel. I said, we don't spin them here anymore.
Yeah.
And are not very many.
Yeah.
And I said, when I first started farming, we grew 18 million bales of cotton and spun close to 15 million.
Okay.
And so now it's the opposite way. I mean, we're spinning very little. I think the last USDA deal was 2.1 million bales.
Oh, really?
That we're using domestically. I mean, that's just nothing. And then we're consuming 25 million bales worth of products that cotton's made from.
Yeah.
So it's, not even 10% of what we consume is being made here.
Yeah.
But that story can be told for industry after industry.
Oh, yeah. It's not just farming. But
so hopefully President Trump has some success in that. Are we going to win every battle in that? No.
Probably not.
I just hope we win the majority of them. And
yeah.
especially, it amazes me every time I come to Lubbock and see the growth here. But then when I drive to Littlefield or Amherst to see that or Milsha, Dimmitt, it's at the expense of some of that.
Yeah.
And not all of it is, but some of it is. We've got a lot of people moving in from California and New Mexico, but they're, Ropes, Texas isn't Ropes, Texas anymore, and New Home's not. I mean, they're going to be big schools before you know it. Shallow water alrea's that way. I mean, all the outlying schools and communities around Lubbock are, they're flourishing, where these outlying ones are, they're just trying to hold on.
Well, man, the way that Lubbock has been growing lately, you give it too much longer, and we'll be another metroplex.
Yes, I mean, it's in the ag stuff, most of the things I have to come to Lubbock for parts that we can't get locally, it's all over here, Avenue A, east side of town. Yeah. But, we went somewhere the other day with my wife and went, south side of Lubbock. I'm like, there's a whole nother Lubbock out here. I mean, it just, and if you don't kind of live through there where you drive, every time you drive through there, you're like, man, where do these people come from? I know over there at Friendship in Wolford that where they extended 50th Street on out there, I called my middle son, Tyler, and I said, Tyler, where are you going to put all these kids? I mean, there's houses going up everywhere. And all Friendship's doing is just building school after school, and he said this, I hope I'm repeating it correctly, but he says a new high school will be full when they open it,
Yeah, exactly.
And they're still having to, pass bonds to build more elementary schools. But if you go over there and see every one of those houses going up, you can see why.
I know it.
It's just a huge influx of people into that district. I mean, so, there's things going on. I just wish the rural parts could participate in it a little bit.
Well, sure.
And we won't be able to on some of them realistically, but hopefully we can still have a quality of life issues and stuff that's why you want to be there. But, but also when I get through driving down 114th or whatever one of those streets out there, I'm pretty glad to get back down 84 towards Littlefield, where it's, you don't have bumper-to-bumper traffic.
Oh, I know it. Yeah.
Get out to my farm where it's just me and a few people out there. It's nice, but it's, America's got a lot of things like that right now, where the rural across the whole country is hurting, and we just don't. The biggest danger I see is when you lose the younger generation and the knowledge that's passed down from older farmers to the next ones. You can't learn that in books. I mean,
no.
There's a lot of good colleges that teach a lot of good ag economics, but what do you do when there's this many plants? Do you keep it? Do you get rid of it? Do you replant it? That kind of knowledge, once that's gone, I'm just afraid we can't get that back on some of it.
Well, that's the unfortunate. I mean, you kind of said it, but do you see the downgrade in younger farmers getting into the agriculture and staying there as a problem?
I see it, but I also think they have a unique opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, because if we've got such good genetics and technology and some of these new varieties, if it just rained some, they could produce. And so I do think that these younger farmers will have some opportunities that hopefully they could be prosperous, if they get into it. It's like I say, I'm not a glass half empty person. I try to look at it's just not worth living life that way.
Right.
I mean, you can find the good in something if you just look for it, or you can be miserable if you want to be. I mean, and you both know people both ways. I mean, so
true.
But I do think there's some opportunity here if we can get some of this trade stuff lined out.
Yeah.
That some of these younger producers could be really good for them. And some of the older ones, we just hope they all hold on to
just a little bit longer.
Teach this to the younger ones so they can, continue what we grow. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you just take for granted that, that you wouldn't know if somebody hadn't taught you.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they can't learn it on their own either, but those mistakes can be costly.
Oh, yeah.
With way nowadays, so you can't make too many of those mistakes and stay in business.
Exactly. So. Yeah, it's almost to the point where if you mess up, you suffer drastically for it.
Well, It's like one guy told me the other day, so I feel like I got 1 foot on the banana peel every year right now, the way things are. I said, well, probably not wrong. I mean,
Exactly.
it is kind of, I think Jody used a really good word at that meeting the other night. He said it's precarious in rural America, and that was probably a good word because it's, we can take advantage of things really fast if things turn around, but holding on is, people are getting a little tired,
Yeah,
and,
I mean, that's
some
understandable.
may not be able to if we don't turn some stuff around
true.
very quick.
That's true.
But like I say, we're not special or different from other businesses. You got to learn to adapt and compete. I mean, there's other businesses go out business all the time. I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
but I just really think ag is such a backbone of the whole area that that if the more prosperous that is, everything else will be.
Based on your relationship with Jody, do you think he listens to
Oh yeah,
people?
he does. He well, in fact, I kind of kidded. I've been preaching to him so much about that trade deal. I said he had a chance to go to Mar-a-Lago or what's Trump's compound name?
I don't even know.
Yeah, whatever that. He got to go to a leadership meeting with Republicans, and I said, "You hammer him on that trade deal." Well, he said nearly word for word in that State of the Country, State of the Union address, whatever you want to call that on the first term. Talked about the trade and the farmers, and I told Jody, I said, "Well, you carried the water for us," because he said exactly what we'd been telling you. So, and he's had some meetings with the U.S. Trade Representative the last couple of weeks where all that was conveyed to him, and that's the unique thing about him. He's working on so much important stuff to cut spending so our country can be prosperous.
Sure.
But at the same time, he's trying to keep it where we don't go broke in rural America.
Exactly.
And so it puts him in a hard spot as, he's trying to cut all this frivolous stuff, and then the budget chairman asking for more money for ag, then it gets a lot of criticism from urban people.
Of course.
He has to balance that and justify it and fight, but, it's just like, Secretary Rawlins denied a grant the other day or cut it out. I guess Doge found it, but they were transgender tomato seeds. I mean, how can a tomato seed be transgender?
What in the world?
I mean, and that, so they've cut a lot of stuff that you read and go, that's crazy. How did they ever start doing that?
What
but
even
it's
is
just
that?
Millions and millions of dollars, and the bad thing about that, there was, anything that had climate attached to it or green, Biden was all for that. Now, but not all that's bad. I mean, there's some programs that, like the National Cotton Council was doing, and the Cotton Trust Protocol Climate Smart program, that was encouraging cover crops. I mean, out here, if we can grow that and help hold the soil and rainfall we get, that's a big benefit. But now it's nearly like all the climate stuff has a bad name to it because of these programs just like that. So not everyone's bad, and that's one problem President Trump's. I think the biggest challenge he has is so many of these things are intertwined into everyday business of the country.
Yeah.
It's going to hurt when they cut some of that till things adjust. And just like a lot of these governmental layoffs, I mean, I feel bad for those people, but we all know people that kind of go and get a paycheck and don't do much and don't care to. I mean, so the ones that do care, that have jobs like that, it's very unfortunate. But it's like I say, any other business, there's farmers facing the same struggles trying to keep going there.
Exactly.
But, so,
do you think Doge is helping regulate that a little bit better?
Yeah. Well, it's at least exposing some of the crazy stuff out there. I mean, but I do know some of these are personally affecting people greatly. But I mean, we've had ag cuts in budget before that the rest of the country didn't have to do. So, we've kind of been there and done that in the past, and now, but so many of these just came into effect after 2020.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing.
Yeah.
What was added that just added, and they're trying to stop some of this foreign ownership and of agricultural land, because if we lose control of that, and then
we're
they
screwed.
grow all the corn they want now and send it to China.
Exactly.
We'd be short. So,
they
there's some
maintain.
national security issues that.
Exactly.
But then that gets into the challenges. What's my land? I can sell it to who I want to. And
Yeah,
so
but
I mean, there's every action has a consequence, and
Exactly.
sometimes they're not all positive. That's the thing I was saying earlier. I believe some of these programs are so intertwined into the economy, it will cause some pain for a while.
Well, sure.
But I do believe in American ingenuity and
Yeah.
resources, and I think our economy will adapt, and but I have no doubt it'll be painful.
Oh, it will be.
Just because the
Yeah.
road we went down to get where we are.
and it already has been. But
Mhm.
everybody's kind of adjusting and adapting the best they can, and I think the hardest part too is not only just getting everything to be manufactured in U.S., but it's getting people to buy it.
Yes.
U.S. made
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
because a lot of people don't. Well, going back to, you mentioned a while back that we're a consuming country, and that a lot of these little countries want to do business with us because obviously we'll buy it. Do you think he's using tariffs to kind of lure them in?
Oh yeah, he is.
Okay.
I mean, and if you listen to he's not saying it has to be one-sided trade. We just need fair trade.
Right.
And right now, a lot of our trade's one-sided. Where the other countries are getting way more of the benefit than we are. Now, I'm not going to deny we're not getting some cheap junk made in other countries, but at the same time, it's cost us.
Yeah.
And I mean, my dad could get a job in the late 50s when he graduated from high school and make a living and not be hard.
Right.
Just with a normal job.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays that's you can't live on minimum wage, and so
Nope.
it's we've got a big imbalance there that has to get some of these costs have to go down, and I think his strategy is a combination of all the above. I mean, if we can get more of it back here, if we can get a better deal with them so they're not jabbing as much. I mean, we're just transferring so much of our wealth to other countries, that's some of it's just gone and won't come back. And,
Sure.
And then when the rest of the world holds all of our T-bills, we're in trouble. I mean, so there's some real serious stuff that on a big scale has got to be fixed.
Yeah.
But it can be. I mean, that it's just like I said, in that last trade deal, Trump got China to buy rice. They don't need rice, but he got them to buy
know,
it,
right?
to be more fair.
Yeah.
So, we got a lot of things like that. The semiconductors and stuff that's been outsourced across seas and stuff. Governor Abbott's already got 2 plants coming back to. I mean, there's the governors. They're being progressive. They're trying to work with President Trump on a lot of these things.
Sure.
And like I say, a lot of people there's just so much untrue facts on social media that it gets the masses stirred. So you have to be real careful where you're getting your information some, and you need to study up on things and
Sure.
see what's.
We'll see, and that's a good balance that you mentioned, that I've kind of adopted and started kind of talking about, is the fact that it's kind of prompted some people to do the research.
And they're learning.
Yeah. Now, I think there's more of a knowledge about this stuff that.
Mm-hmm. I truly believe this. I think if the people don't like the job you're doing, they'll send somebody else.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I do know it is hard to be the incumbent. I'm not going to deny that, but if we got some up there just literally not doing their job that people want, they're going to get voted out.
Sure.
And so I told my kids the pendulum always swings, and I said I think we swung so far this way, now we're swinging back, and hopefully when you're here it's pretty good, and then it'll go the other way too far, and then they'll have to come back. But I said it happens over time, and I said right now we're having to be a surgeon, because you can't cut the leg off and bleed to death.
Sure.
But you can cut away the cancerous skin tissue or something. I mean, to put it in medical terms.
Sure.
Because it is so intertwined,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't take your heart out and live. I mean, that's, our country, like I say earlier, it's so embedded, a lot of these economic things that are going on, there will be real pain cutting some of that, and we'll all experience it.
Yeah.
From some point, whether it's higher prices for a while or whatever, but President Trump's got some crazy ideas on taxes and stuff. You do the numbers on it, you go, that could work. And so I think he's open to doing whatever to give the power back to the people.
Sure.
You know, and
well, and even he knows it's gonna come at a little bit of a cost,
yes,
but
yeah, well, even he says that every time he
Yeah.
talks. You know,
so
I just hope we can get our country back on track, and then used to be a saying, as ag goes, the country goes. I don't know if it's that same anymore. But
I
still
don't
think
know.
it
I
does
think
a
it
lot,
does.
you
Yeah.
know. And we're such a minority of the whole country now, but we still produce so much of the GDP. It's a significant,
Mm-hmm.
part of the economy.